selecting effective global leaders. It'd be nice to open up a book and say, hey, take this test over here, and you too can become a leader. Whoa, you got a 79. You have to have an 80% to be a global leader. It doesn't work that way. I mean, that's all cute, and it's nice in the world of academia to pretend a test will measure somebody's competency. But that being said, they really do help you as an individual in the aspect of assessing your own leadership competencies as you go through. Personally, let me assess this to you from a human resource perspective, and I am an expert in the area. The idea of using a personality test to choose somebody for a job, I think, is frankly ludicrous, foolish, and in the United States is flat out against the law, according to Griggs versus Duke Power Supreme Court case as you go through. A personality test has no business in the selection process. You can sit down and let somebody go through and choose different things like a market basket test in the process of choosing people to hire. But the idea of saying, this personality is the only one good for this one, what planet are you from? The truth of the matter is a lot of people can succeed in that job and have a little bit different personality type as you go through. You may sit down and have the ability to go through and do a spreadsheet, and that would qualify you for the job, but because you think this certain way, it doesn't qualify you as you go through. If you walk in with that kind of concept, you may exclude an entire culture within the company that you're going to as it moves into another thing, because they don't use that type of mindset to sit down and accomplish the same goals that you go through. So that being said, we're talking about these type of tests, and I'm recommending them to you on the basis of helping you with your personal self-development in the aspect of knowing what global leadership competencies entail, and for you to sit down and learn what they are by taking these different types of inventories as you go through. One of the really good ones is a cross-cultural adaptability inventory as you go through. Take that test as you go through. There's also, I guess probably even more so than that, is when you go into a country, let's say, for instance, whether it's even the UK, where we may have the same language, sit down there and understand some of the customs they have, how they're different than over here. When you go into an Asian country, pay attention and go through, learn, do some formal education before you go into them, and then learn about their different aspects as to how business is conducted there. South America, even though we're in the same side of the planet, the truth of the matter is there's no similarity between how you do businesses. Don't talk about business during lunch. Wait until dessert at the very end. Don't show up on time. A lot of different cultural aspects of it. Learn not just about the cultural competencies that we're talking about over here, about having the mindset as you go through, but also make certain you spend time out to look on the aspect of what's going on, whether it be the Pacific Islands as you go through, whether it be Northern Africa, Southern Africa, whether it be China, whether it be other parts of Asia as you go through. Make certain if you're going into a Muslim country, you have a respect for their cultures as you go through, because it could be very different and you may offend somebody inadvertently and unintentionally just by not paying attention to the customs that they have as you go through. Be cautious, know the people, and learn, and sometimes listen before you speak. These tools over here, especially the first two, the Intercultural Development Inventory and the CCAI as you go through, they're really good tests in the aspect of developing you as an individual. A lot of times, you really have 4 different aspects you want to look at. The individual characteristics of you as a leader, the cultural exposure you have in the country that you're going to, the global education, it really helps you an awful lot. And then the project novelty as to how it really is different as you go into the country. Here is, of all the charts in this segment over here, I really would like you to take a look on the very top of the individual characteristics of the GLED model as you go through, the global leader expertise development as you go through. The very first one is non-judgmentalness. I'm not even certain that's a real word, but at the end of the day, being non-judgmental as you go through is a big thing, because it is our nature to sit down there and assume that the culture that we grew up in is the best one. And you know what? We have a right to believe that, but so does the person you're talking to in a different country. They grew up in their culture. They believe their cultural aspect is correct as you go through. So be cautious about judging them from your own perspective as you go through versus your perspective. You know what? I went to one country and it was incredible as you go through. In this particular country, they pray 5 times a day, except for the fact that the annual income was less than $1,000 a year on a per capita basis. And you know what? Our driver forgot, and he forgot to clear out his trunk. And instead of him going and taking his different equipment he had in his trunk, he put it on the sidewalk in downtown, and he left it there for 2 hours. And he came back, and it was still there. That whole aspect of poverty breeds crime simply didn't show itself over there because of the fact that the culture there talked about having an awareness that God watches everything in their culture. And his stuff, oh, it wasn't left on the middle of the sidewalk, but the fact that he left and came back almost 2 hours later and it was still there in downtown and nobody had taken it would really be different, because I'm not certain I would do that here in the United States. There's a different aspect as you go through when you talk about being non-judgmental. Yes, you may come from a country like the United States that is wealthy beyond anything imaginable in other parts of the world, except for the fact that for us to sit down and judge them based upon our wealth, judge them based upon our technology is absolutely false, because they will bring different things to the table that you've never experienced as you go through. Non-judgmentalness is a big deal. Tolerance of ambiguity, in other words, not knowing what's going to happen. Make certain that you're cosmopolitan and you're going to accept people for who they are and where they're coming from. And then make certain that you work on that relationship between you and the person you're working with, because at the end of the day, a lot of businesses, people with people as you go through, and make certain you develop an interpersonal initiation to the people as you go through, and you're emotionally sensitive as you go through. I can't recommend enough that you pay attention to all those things. The whole aspect of right stuff is about making certain that you learn as you go through, and you're constantly learning in the process as you go through. The talent, a lot of times, along with the expertise as you go through and you learn and you're constantly learning, really that adds up to the right stuff as you go through. Global leaders, they require strong training in the fundamentals, especially in the aspect of international business. And this course is only the beginning of your training. Part of it is to make certain that you're shocked in the aspect of the massive diversity that we have, because of the fact there's so many different parts that can change between country to country to country. So the immersion in different cultures is a huge part of this course as you go through, but also making certain you understand that when you go into a different country, whether it's Ireland, whether it's India, whether it's China, whether it's Japan, whether it's South Africa, that you pay attention to the people's cultures, their mores, their norms, their laws in the process, making certain that you're non-judgmental, that you're learning how to sit down and conduct business in their culture according to their values as you go through. It just depends as you go through over here. Nelson Mandela, he was put into the crucible of leadership in this country because he was in prison for a long time. Then at the end, he came out, ended up rising up to a leadership position in the country as you go through. He learned through the process of actually being educated in a totally different way than any of us would ever possibly see. The global leadership traits include non-judgmental, tolerance of ambiguity, and then also self-awareness and self-confidence on the inside that you can and you will succeed as you go through, that emotional sensitivity. Take the different kinds of tests as you go through, the CCAI and GELI as you go through and then the process. And then also make certain you engage in cultural awareness training as you go through, and even do something that's pretty normal that we do over here called the Myers-Briggs test or strength quest as you go through. Those are effective tools in the process as you go through. See me for more information on that if that interests you. With that being said, you take care. See you in a bit.